Welcome, everybody, and welcome to another episode of my podcast. And hello, if you're watching. I have no idea if I wave because I have no idea if people are watching this or not, but it is on YouTube. Thank you, Chris, for not leaving me there hanging. And as you all know, I am delighted to have Chris. Chris, actually, fair play to you. You kind of pushed your way onto this. I know we agreed to do this a while ago, and then I just didn't get around to organising it because I'm bloody useless. So thank you for giving me the nudge. I have been following Chris for... it feels like forever on social, so I actually feel like I know him. This is the first time that we have met per se, albeit digitally. Chris Allen, him, describes himself as Chief of Sales and Memes and co-founder at Licenseware, the PAYG SAM app ecosystem. Talks about SAM, cloud licensing, Microsoft, and software asset management from the greater Oxford area. And he wears a yellow hat. Chris, without further ado, welcome. Who, what, why, when, where, and let's talk about selling differently.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me on, even though, like you said, I somewhat barged my way onto here. A long time coming, and you're right, we've never spoken before, so it's very strange now being... I know what you look like. I've watched your Ask Alex videos every Friday for yonks now, so I recognize you. But I've never actually heard your voice directly into my ears, which hasn't been pre-recorded. So
I hope it's a positive thing in your ear cancelling your noise cancelling headphones.
I've turned up as loud as possible.
So, what's your story, Chris?
It depends which story I'm telling. Sales story. We'll talk the sales story.
Yeah,
it's mainly stemmed from my mother. My mother thought I'd be good at sales. I studied chemistry at university. So I came out to the world thinking it was my oyster. Did some interviews in London to work for some chemical organizations, some lab equipment organizations, and I couldn't get a job doing that because I had no experience. So I took a local job at a criminal checking company because that's the natural next step. It was down the road, it wasn't too far. It was enjoyable. The IT manager got fired there. And I put my hand up to say, look, I kind of know a bit about computers. I've grown up PC gaming. I know how to build computers. I know how to build gaming servers. Do you want me to help you guys along on the IT front until we hire someone else? They didn't hire anyone else until I quit. So that was about a year later. So I got hired by a supplier in Bath. So they were selling 365, Microsoft licensing, effectively, cloud Microsoft licensing. And my job was a cold call monkey, $120 a day, generate leads to pass on to account managers. I thought there must be a better way of doing this. And then I found LinkedIn. And yeah, it sort of just stemmed from there. I started posting kind of what I wanted to a certain extent. The marketing manager that we had at the time, well, he's still there now, really, really nice guy. Alex Bacon kind of let me have free reign to a certain extent of what I could post. And it kind of just spiraled, I guess. I had a few weird LinkedIn profile pictures. And I wanted to make sure that they were strange, but I kind of needed to get a slightly more professional one when we had it was New Year's Day, and we went down to the beach and everyone went swimming in the sea, and then we got out, and then I put on that jacket and the yellow hat to get warm. And then my sister took that picture, and I thought that'll do. And then the yellow hat thing started, which you actually helped me turn into a brand thing.
A brand. So that's where, because I've always actually felt that's actually what you have, one of the better kind of LinkedIn profile photos. Mine is me talking at a LinkedIn conference the other day. Some person I didn't know commented on the fact that it looked like whether I was following through on a farce or not. I thought it was a slightly random comment to make of somebody you don't know, but yours, what I like about your photo, to the point, is that your hat, it kind of stands out, and the fact that you have built a brand around a yellow hat, if it will. So what, in terms of then, from converted, was that it? And then current, you need to say that carefully, in terms of the cold calling, and then into kind of posting stuff onto social. What kind of what was the trigger to think, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this, or I want to do it differently, should we say?
I wanted to form a passive income of leads.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than being purely based on what can I deliver this week or what can I deliver this month, it's a case of I want to have another stream of inbound leads.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some research about LinkedIn and about sort of what it does for you as a person, personally and professionally, how that's going to help you with your career.
Yeah.
Obviously, networking, meeting new people. And the first sort of proper conversation I had, and I'm still friends with them now, and I still do work occasionally with them now. I posted a post asking about whether or not the gatekeeper, you've got to get through the receptionist, can have an impact on an organization's technical direction based on who they let through. And I ended up having a chat with this IT director in the comments saying, not all cold callers are bad.
Yeah.
And then the next day he decided to let a cold caller go through who was lying apparently about being his cousin. And he messaged me like, wasn't happy about that. I was like, really sorry, but if you ever want to have a chat or whatever, let me know. And he said, do you know what? We actually want to do some stuff in the cloud. Can we organize a call on Monday, whatever? I'm at the pub currently. And I was like, I'm at the pub as well. And we've had that relationship now for 5 years. And that was the first point of realization, like this can actually work.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued to what sort of scale, whilst pushing the boundaries of not doing it too professionally. I wanted to see as an experiment how much I could. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you're allowed to swear.
How much I could shitpost and get away with it and it still be profitable. That was kind of the intention to start with. Is like, okay, this can work. Let's see how far I can go with it and just go from there. And I probably haven't made a proper cold call now for the past 2.5 years.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just do it via LinkedIn now. I mean, it's not purely inbound. I do some outbound stuff on LinkedIn, but I won't pitch people in messages anymore.
The old switcheroo, connect, and then you get war and peace through thing. It's like deconnect, delete, and so on. I think that's the people know me that I don't actually like the term social selling. I think it's lost all kind of meaning from when it was coined back in 2014, 2015, whenever. But it's the kind of the proving it works, and when people kind of like you did for the first time, you basically created a conversation. I actually think what you did there very cleverly with that post is that you created some kind of tension in the question around. That's a bit of a challenge. Going, well, I'd never thought about that until this point in time, that actually it could well be that the right person isn't being allowed to get through because the 99 other calls have just been snake oil salesperson, and what might that mean for the overall direction of travel for a business, and how you're able to turn that into a conversation and kind of learn from that. And I believe that when people experience that for themselves for the first time, that's then when the penny starts to drop, if you will, going, there's something to this. But I guess what I know separates you from the crowd is that you're prepared to be brave in terms of some of the stuff that goes out there, and B, I guess it's helped that you've worked for organisations who have been permissive in terms of allowing you to kind of stretch the boundaries of what the LinkedIn police / brand police might see as being suitable on LinkedIn. We'll come to that in a minute, because I've seen a massive change in the last 18 months, 12 months on all of that. But would you say that's a fair assumption of being allowed to push the boundaries has enabled you to create what you've created in terms of the brand that is Chris?
Yeah, I definitely say so. And I mean, I have been slapped on the wrists a few times.
Okay.
I've gone beyond the grey line, so to speak, on a few occasions, and quickly had to take posts down. But I like to archive them myself, just thinking that was a funny one. That was a funny one. So no, that's definitely being allowed to have that flexibility in my approach at the platform. And I think there was an acceptance of that I wasn't there to represent the organization as well. And I think a lot of people were aware if you had been following me for a while, that I wasn't there to
yeah
explicitly promote my company for two reasons. One, people buy from people. So from my perspective, it didn't seem to make sense to promote the organization behind me. Obviously, I need to have an organization, a trustworthy organization, a credible organization that backs me.
Yeah.
However, 90% of the job is going to be done via the fact they're buying from a person. So I didn't want to constantly throw my organization's name out. And secondly, where was I going with this? Secondly, they were happy with me to build my own brand, because then it kind of separated. They were aware that I was doing it, and whilst it was, for my benefit, it inadvertently, obviously, they were going to make business out of the leads I was generating. But at the same time, it wouldn't affect them from a branding perspective, because it was focused on my brand as opposed to the organization's. So
apart from the poster you were asked to take down.
Yeah, apart from those ones.
And it's such a grey area, that, and I agree with you. There is, and each organization is different. It is this balance that sometimes you have marketing, dare I say it, kind of enforcing this. You will promote the corporate message and push it, which actually fundamentally no employee has to do. Nobody can tell you to post anything on LinkedIn from a corporate perspective. And it's that blend between building the brand that is you. And I kind of, again, this kind of personal branding, I feel, has gone a little bit kind of too far in terms of the narrative at the moment, because of what's happened. And I think there's a difference between having a personal brand and having a personality. And I would suggest through your personality and style, you've actually created that brand. Whereas I feel that I see people trying to create a personal brand for the sake of a personal brand, rather than actually building around their personality. And what you have done very well, because it is you. I don't actually know who you work for. I know who you work for now, but at the time it's Chris.
Yeah.
But I knew what you did in the round in terms of the industry and the stuff you did with Microsoft and 365 and licensing and cloud. So you were very, very clever at positioning yourself in terms of you, and this is my knowledge, and this is the organization I happen to work for, which is not easy to do, to, in my view, get that this is what I know, because typically it's the other way around. It's you're pushing, this is what the company knows, and I'm the voice to do it. And I guess also, and I've spoken to a few others who have your advantage, that you are technically ept. Is that opposite inept? I don't. I made something up. I don't know.
That works. I'm happy with that.
Heard it here first. The fact that you are technical, because again, a lot of your content is good content, and it's, even though it might look rough and ready, you're doing it with intention in a very clever way. Whereas, and I will shut up in a minute, I do see people that I get what they're trying to do, but it's done badly and actually almost is counterproductive, because the production quality is just, I'm not saying my production quality isn't any good, but it's like, oh, wow, I get what we're trying to do there, but that just hasn't worked, because you're almost stretching your technical abilities of what you're trying to create from a content perspective too far. So what would your kind of advice be to people that are kind of sitting there thinking, I want to do what Chris does, but how do I go about even kind of starting this? Where do I start? I mean, you had that post, but what before that kind of getting out there, what prompted you? How did you go about thinking about even asking that very clever question?
That's a good question. That's a very clever question. I think from my perspective, I was always wanted it to be a story, in the sense that people I'd meet, they would somewhat be taken along a journey. Like there's some people out there who actually know the story behind the hats and why I have multiple of them. Like you said about the yellow hat branding side of things. I mean, I started it because I wanted to just generate some more leads. And there's three things, I suppose, that are my passion. which is one, memes. I love memes. I spend a lot of time on the internet, so it made sense for me to do something that I enjoyed, and is I suppose a culture I'm part of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'm into PC gaming, and I've never sort of shied away from that, or my nerdy side, and I'm keen to sort of promote that. And then obviously I like the industry I work in, which kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that it's a business platform and I'm trying to generate business in the industry that I work in. So it's kind of just identify things that you'd be happy to post about and not forcing yourself to post about.
Yeah.
You could, for example, work in a state agency and just talk about tech and memes. I mean, it's probably not necessarily like the best strategy. However, when it comes to creating content and in engaging with people and gaining a following and creating a network, you're more likely to do that with something you're passionate about than necessarily something you're not passionate about. Because you're not necessarily, your demographic isn't necessarily going to be the ones you want to sell to. The majority of my demographic is actually salespeople. And I mean, that's partially tactical because salespeople are connected with the people I'm actually trying to sell to because they're trying to sell to them as well. But, it would have made more sense for me to connect with IT directors, but I actually focused on connecting with salespeople because I did talk a lot about sales. And it still worked because, the message was still, my tactic was always, it's best to be known for the wrong reasons than none at all. That was my outset. And my mum's always sort of put that mindset in my head of like, she used to love doing karaoke. She still loves doing karaoke.
Yeah.
And she would always say, you're never going to meet these people again. So just give it a go. Doesn't matter at the end of the day. And whilst LinkedIn's a bit more permanent in the sense that obviously people are going to know who I am, I just thought to myself, if it doesn't go well, I'll just bin it off.
I think
I just
you raise, or your mother raises a very good point there, because I think a lot of it is it's that fear factor, if you will. Oh my God, this is social media. Everybody can see it, but also what if it's a bit shit? And if I look at just in terms of the quality of the content or whatever it is you're trying to do, and if I look at my journey, certainly on video, the Ask Alex videos, the kind of the iterations they have gone through, and I've got plans in my head for next year in terms of where I want to take it. And I've now built amazingly a community around that, and people that I don't even realize watch it. Like chief execs, like, really, you watch my videos? I don't even see you on my. They're like, yeah, I look forward to your Friday kind of stuff. Like, okay, fine, cool. But it was the kind of the same old. Okay, well, it's a bit crap. We just try again and carry on going until it's not crap, or you just decide it's not necessarily for you. And I think what's interesting, you talk about you kind of sell to sales people because of who they're connected to, and I see an interesting kind of thing starting to kind of happen in that space. You look at Tom Boston, so Tom Boston at Sales Lot, in terms of what he's been doing around very depreciating kind of sales comedy, if you will, and engaging with the sales community, who fundamentally will end up using the technology that they buy. But they can be advocates of it, but it's got to be sales directors, got to be CFOs that sign the stuff up, to the point that they've actually created a new role for him called Chief Social Evangelist, to kind of build on that content strategy. Again, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but the sales community that's starting to kind of burgeon on TikTok with each other. Again, it's the very self-depreciating, very funny kind of a day in the life of corporate bro style stuff, and it's almost this, dare I say, anti-marketing approach, which is generating for some people huge amounts of opportunity and leads. And I guess for me, one of the original kind of leaders of this is Dan Disney and the daily sales, in terms of what Dan's created in terms of that kind of following on his daily sales feed, which is in the hundreds of thousands, I believe, which is basically sales memes, which is what it's all about. And I dabble with memes, gifs are more my thing rather than memes. But I also don't have the intellectual capacity to come up with something funny, so I'll repurpose another one. But it'd be interesting to get your take on this. The change that I've seen on LinkedIn in terms of the type of content that is now being put out there, from what would have been it's just light years away from what we would have seen 3 years ago. And that's even in my world of working with lawyers and accountants. Them putting videos up, them putting funny stuff up, them putting more personal approach to it. So what? And I'm not saying this because you're on the podcast. I see you as one of the leading lights of this in your world. But from your side of the fence and your community, which is slightly different to mine, what changes are you seeing?
Exactly like you said, I think people are becoming more comfortable with the idea of LinkedIn not being what people thought it to be. There's this stereotypical joke of LinkedIn's not Facebook. Well, when did LinkedIn become like Facebook? Someone posted that 2-3 days ago saying, when did LinkedIn become Facebook? And my response was, when did people start working in businesses? Facebook went through a similar transition. So when Facebook was just starting out, there wasn't much in the sense of photos and videos. It was a lot of written content. People were very closely knit in their local communities or families, etc. Whereas Facebook now is more of a content sharing platform, not typically done by the people who are actually posting it. They're sharing stuff they think's funny, and they're making friends with people in online communities. You name it, there's going to be a group for it on Facebook, as an example. LinkedIn is going through that same transition, but there's people clinging on to the old LinkedIn's a business platform, which it most definitely is. However, it's becoming more the fact that people are the face of businesses, and when people are on the internet, this is the shit they do. They like to post weird stuff. I mean, that's what the internet was made for. And LinkedIn's going to be tainted by that to a certain extent. Every single platform is going to be tainted by that. It's the internet at the end of the day.
It's the internet and it's social media. And I agree with you. And I think for me, it's interesting seeing the impact this is having on SaaS selling to start with, in terms of that market. When I think professional services, the more traditional kind of markets, I think will eventually come on that journey. But this whole, the world of selling is being upended on its head just generally, because obviously what's happened in terms of the way that things were done. We could do things a different way. Field sales, as far as I'm concerned, is dead. I don't think field sales will be the way that it was. But it's also what, for me, that LinkedIn is wrestling with, and we're starting to see this come out in the research as well, is this: they've got 4 age profiles, possibly 5 age profiles now to deal with. You've got the mid to late 50s who use it as a CV shop, and that's kind of it, or the digital Rolodex. Those of you listening know what a Rolodex is. All the way through to the next Gen Z coming through, where they live their life on TikTok and Reels and Snapchats, and their whole life is broadcast on the internet, and they're used to. It's normal for them, not necessarily in a healthy way, to have this online. There's no real difference between the online persona and kind of persona you have in real life. And it's also, gaming is, I think, such a massively misunderstood community. I saw yesterday in a WhatsApp group I'm in that gaming is the biggest in terms of eyeballs, even over YouTube and this all users. And it was somebody who is looking at how do you leverage gaming from a marketing perspective, so from a consumer perspective, and things like Discord, how that's now come from complete kind of anonymity. Anonymity is a Friday. So kind of amazing. I saw yesterday that they turned down some insane offer from, I think, Microsoft or someone, and they've taken a value. I think they've taken 500 mil, which is now put and valued at 15 billion.
Nice.
They only made 135 million last year, and they're not even profitable. It's like what? It's like what? Why the hell did I not think of this when I was back in the back in the day when we had, Microsoft MSN chat and 512K dial-up. If only we'd known, Chris. And it's, how are you? Because again, the world that I sell to is very different. I still sell to leadership, but it's just different in terms of the way that and what I sell. So in terms of IT directors and people that you're selling to, I guess in terms of the more traditional, which is a stupid thing to say, what sort of reaction do you get from them in terms of when they kind of see what you do, what you engage with online, even if they maybe haven't seen it initially, you connect with them, and then they start to see kind of who Chris is, maybe before they've seen who Chris is, what sort of reaction do you, if any? I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Normally it depends on, like you said, probably their age group to a certain extent, and how long they've been in the industry and how much they use social media. I'd say on average, it's very like, what are you doing, mate? That's the average response.
Yeah.
I mean, with enterprise organizations, I'll be speaking with number of different departments or a number of different contacts within those departments. So some people get it. Majority of them are just like, what are you doing, mate? And it's like, just having a bit of fun. But it keeps them entertained. They'll see it, and then 3 weeks later, I might go into the office. I won't be doing it anytime soon. But before COVID, etc., I'd go into the office, and they'd be like, "That video was a bit stupid, wasn't it?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, it was. Hope you enjoyed it." And he's like, "I did actually." I was like, "Well, there you go."
And I think that's the key point here, is that it's creating that anchor point, and it's creating that kind of that point of differentiation from out of all the noise that is out there in terms of how can I stand out from everybody. But the key thing, and I think that this is the key thing, and I was reading some of the very positive recommendations you have on your profile beforehand. This is all about starting the conversation, right? It's all about creating those connections and starting the conversation. There are two aspects here. I guess you kind of have to back up the personality that you create online, because if you have this persona online that isn't you in person, that in itself can almost fall foul, and people go, hang on a second, then we know that. I now know that's fake, so what else not trust about you? But the other thing about this is all about starting and creating conversations. And I always get very frustrated when people go, well, prove to me social selling works, or prove to me LinkedIn works. It's like, well, fundamentally, I'm not here to help your sales team close. I'm here to help your sales teams create conversations and create network, create community. If they can't then convert that into a qualified pipeline of opportunity and close it, social, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, email campaigns, cold calling hasn't necessarily failed per se. It's the sales process. And I do kind of get the sense that we're still seeing this, and I freely admit I've been part of it, this kind of still this camp mentality, not camp in terms of camp, but camp as in a camp you sleep in, mentality around it's this or it's that or it's this. You can't kind of mix it all together. And the other, to your point, is that it's not, yes, if you did, it drives inbound, but you also have to do outbound, and that outbound could be on through social. But at least when I do it, and I'm going to make an assumption the same as for you, within my industry and my sector, people kind of know me already, even if we're not connected, or that it's like, or they know someone who knows someone in terms of this. So what's your take on, again, from what you're seeing, where do you believe that this is going to go? Well, I'll shut up in a minute because I'm doing most of the talking. Around this, we're in the creator economy. LinkedIn announced their creator funds last week, I think it was, although it's only there for Americans at the moment. Where do we think we're going to go down the TikTok generation? Is that short form video? What the hell is sales going to be in 10 years time, do you think?
If I knew, then making a lot of money. So I don't think it will go down the direction of TikTok. I think it will go more down the direction of YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube supports short to long form content. YouTube supports everything. If you want to learn anything or you want to entertain yourself on anything, YouTube is the platform for that. I think LinkedIn will just be the business version at some point. How they deliver that will be obviously different to that of YouTube, because YouTube is normally associated around people, but it can be associated around groups or businesses, which I suppose LinkedIn is the same, to be fair. I think that's the direction it will head in. How that will impact sales.
Do you, okay, that's an unfair question to ask, because I couldn't ask the question. Now, it could be, I've seen this, I can't remember if it was you or someone else, this conversation about LinkedIn becoming YouTube. I would argue it's kind of halfway there, because you've got LinkedIn Learning. The LinkedIn Learning in terms of that aspect of, now, what thing LinkedIn is shit at is how it manages video, how it curates video. Now, we're losing stories. I saw the announcement. I mean, okay, stories, fine, what have you. And it seems to be they are reinventing what video is going to be like. I'm also seeing the rise of the conversation around back to selling differently, is the use of video within outreach messages. And I can never, what is it, asynchronous, whatever the thing is, videos. So it's not live, basically. Asynchromatic video, whatever it might be. Do you use video at all in terms of outreach?
Vidyard, yeah, I've played with Vidyard before. I find it very effective, and I think I've just posted that diss track thing, and someone was saying, "Oh, I should start sending these to people in pitches." And I think, why not? I mean, if you can just have a generic rap and then you just change the name in it as a pitch, then I think it's different. It's standing out. With respect to LinkedIn and how they manage videos, I think. So at the moment, we've got the featured section, haven't we? So we can star content. How you manage historic content will be changed, in the sense of you'll have featured sections. I expect you'll be able to do playlists as well.
They were done. I just think the fact you can curate articles and documents, but you still can't curate bloody videos into one place. It's just so, especially the content. God, I sound like a douche. The content creators like ourselves, I would like my videos to be in one feed, so that people can just scroll through the video feed like they do on that. I just, for the love of me, I don't know why they haven't done it. It can't be that difficult from a code perspective. Just go, this is a video file, put it in this line with other videos. But it's
the creator fund you mentioned. I'm not aware of this, but I was thinking in the shower this morning. Not on me, I hope. Yes, about you. I got you turned up really loud in my ears. Was the fact that with YouTube, etc., the content creators generate money through sponsorship. So in the same way, if creators are driving people to LinkedIn to consume said content, how are LinkedIn incentivizing that for the creators? Because currently they're not. LinkedIn's getting paid directly to put the sponsorships onto the feed. They're being paid by the organizations, obviously, who want to promote their stuff for business reasons. But the people who are making people go to LinkedIn aren't getting anything in return. One would assume is that they're getting a business benefit from it. But even if I wasn't in sales, I still think I would post shit on LinkedIn because it's fun.
But I think that's a really, you raise an interesting point there. And I always have this debate with people that I'm in a Facebook group, people getting frustrated that they're getting restricted on this and that, and then it transpires they're not paying for LinkedIn at all, but they're using it for commercial purposes. And like, just pay for premium, pay for Sales Navigator. If you're half as good as you say you are, one deal should pay for that license, X times over. And then we're not having to rely on advertising to keep LinkedIn, alive. And I guess from my perspective, whilst yes, I create content which hopefully keeps people on LinkedIn, which keeps eyeballs, blah, 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 that drives other revenue streams for me. I get what you're saying about I'd still put stuff on LinkedIn even if I wasn't in sales. But again, you're unique. You and I are in the minority in terms of just putting stuff on there. And I'm passionate about barbecue, so I just put barbecue videos on Instagram and stuff because of what have you. But I feel there's still a huge audience out there that just wouldn't do that because it's LinkedIn, right? So you wouldn't. But that's an interesting angle in terms of how might one monetize you. But then you're moving into the kind of, it's a gray area though, because it's the Patreon OnlyFans kind of model. So, email subscription kind of letters and this type of thing. Of course, now people can, I haven't got it yet, but you can email newsletters, obviously coming full circle, because you can write an article and turn that into a subscription model. So I get what you're saying, but from my perspective, I think it's LinkedIn would move into a gray area if they started to go down that route, because for all its failings, the fact that we're not inundated with the amount of shit that you see on other platforms in terms of advertising, because that's how they make money, I think is a good thing. And I think if it started to go down that route, that could be a tricky place for it. I don't know, purely my view.
I'd be interested to understand how much the money they make from promoting sponsored content.
I think they hit $1 billion. I think the last quarterly earnings in Microsoft, they hit $1 billion in revenue on ads.
I mean,
which to me is amazing, because I've never clicked on a LinkedIn ad in my life.
I often click on them by accident.
Pay the money. I know you're sign up. Have that £4. That £4 I'm going to charge you. Go into your competitor website. So it's bank on. Click.
I do genuinely think they'll have to incentivize people, though. I think the platform would don't think it would slowly die, but I think they're missing a trick, because every other platform out there does support that sort of model. And if you're directly involved in sales, then of course we're getting a decent business benefit off the back of it. And then I would say so for HR and marketing. But if you're in another department and you're putting good content out there and you've generated a following, and then you compare that to someone who's done the same on Instagram, they're just going to leave LinkedIn and move the following over to Instagram. So
it's fair, and I think as I reflect on that as we're talking, if some of the narrative and some of the groups I'm in over in the US around actually, I think from a sales perspective, selling differently in the kind of maybe the future of sales, as it'll almost be kind of the SDR role, if you will become a gun for hire. So it'll be a portfolio, i.e. you as an SDR or seller will buy your own stack, your own tech stack. You will have created, much like you have done, and then you'll have a portfolio of companies that you sell for, where they charge you, or you charge them commission based on XYZ. So I can then kind of see, then if you're kind of that sales creator type thing making it up, then to be able to monetize what you're doing also from the content creation side of things, that the logic then makes sense to me.
It should be interesting.
It is interesting times ahead. We didn't get into it, but let's get into it. Let's keep. You still got time to keep going?
Yeah. I'm still happy to chat.
So what I wanted to also talk about is that you've now gone in. You're now doing your own thing, right? So I've just your profile. I've just seen the gif of the dude going to the swimming pool. So licenseware, co-founder that the PAYG SAM app ecosystem. And before we came on air in the green room, I know in my imaginary green room, you mentioned it's been an interesting kind of shift from going to kind of the sales role to the marketing role. And why did you also decide to take a leap of faith as we're coming out the back end of a global crisis?
I'll start with the latter question. So I had a really, really good run at Software One. I'd achieved a lot there. My focus, I had moved obviously from Devon to London. So I moved all the way from my family. I had no friends. It was mainly for my career to make that shift. My main aim was to do at least 3 years and save up enough so I could get on the property ladder. I managed to get a mortgage. So that was that goal accomplished. The guys at Licenseware approached me. I've been in talks with them for a while. nice guys and sort of discussion, the vision through of myself and what they were talking about doing in the market really resonated with me. But I said, I can't do it yet because I still need to achieve said goal. And I achieved said goal. And then they got an investment round, I think it was a couple months before. So it seemed to be like a good time to make that shift. And I'm relatively young. I don't have any responsibilities. I mean, I've got a mortgage now, but a mortgage is cheaper than rent. So financially, I could actually then do it. I just thought to myself, I've always wanted to join a startup. If I'm ever going to do it, now's the time to give it a go. And made the leap of faith.
So your job title is Chief of Sales and Memes.
Yes.
I mean, is that literally what it says on the tin? You're in charge of sales and memes, or is there a little more to it than that?
Chief of Sales and Marketing. Everyone knows my type of marketing is mainly associated around memes. So it wasn't going to differ too much from what I was doing already. It's just a case of now I've got to do it from a corporate company standpoint and develop the branding around that, probably more professionally than I've done for my own one. But at the same time, it's a similar tactic of standing out from the crowd. You know, we're going into a market which is somewhat saturated already. We need to disrupt, so we need to do things differently. We need to make waves and make some noise. So that's what I've got to do from a marketing perspective. And then from a sales perspective, just got to sell stuff.
Sell stuff to people.
Sell stuff to people. Now, people.
What is it? There's pay as you go. What's SAM?
Software asset management. The software to track your software.
Software to track your software.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good. And was the yellow branding? So the yellow branding, I'm assuming, was your choice to be on brand with your yellow hat, or did that already exist?
No. So their branding's blue. So
okay, so you just gone yellow. You just gone screw you. I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm just looking at your LinkedIn, your LinkedIn banner image.
Yeah, that's my LinkedIn profile. That's my banner.
Of course, I can see now the blue here. It's the blue. Whereabouts in Oxford do you live? I know we don't.
So I live south of Oxford, Wantage. Small town called Wantage. We weren't planning on moving here. We ended up moving in with a friend to live in his flat whilst we were looking for a house. And we're looking in the northwest of Oxford. And we said, should we just have a look down the road at this house that's for sale? And it was perfect. So that's why we ended up here.
Fantastic. I remember seeing a post saying you've achieved what your goal was to get them all and get on the property ladder. So fantastic. Where can people find you, Chris? If they want to learn more about you, if they want to follow and learn from you in terms of your unique style that is on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I don't know. You just search Chris Allen and I should come up. Chris Allen, Chief of Sales and Memes. You can either find me, you can also find me via Licenseware, our company page. Obviously, I'm an employee there.
Links somewhere. I still haven't figured this bit out, how you do this on YouTube.
If you just point fingers everywhere, then something will come up.
Cool. Chris, I'm very glad that you kind of forced your way onto this. So I know we said we would, but he basically emailed me yesterday saying, when am I coming on the podcast? And I said, could we do next week? I was on holiday. I'm like, fuck it. We'll do it today then. So today being the Friday before the Wednesday that it goes out. It's been an absolute pleasure. And from January, it's been an absolute pleasure kind of watching you from afar but near in terms of what you have created in terms of the brand. It's a masterclass on how to do it differently, but do it well. So listeners, if you're not following Chris, please go and follow it, because you will see what I mean. It's very, very, very clever. And all I can do is wish you the very best of luck in your endeavors, and keep on going with the yellow hat.
Thank you, my friends. I greatly appreciate it. That's a really heartfelt feedback, and I look forward to our journey together moving forward. Some big stuff coming up for the next couple of years, definitely.
Good, fantastic. And as always, to my guests, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. Really do appreciate it. If you want to be on this podcast, you just do what Chris did and just barge your way into my inbox. If there are people that you want to recommend to be on this podcast, you know what to do. But from me to you, I don't know why I said that, for those that know. Thank you, and wherever you're in the world, keep well, and I'll see you until next time.